The morning light over Windsor Castle was deceptively serene, filtering through the heavy brocade curtains of the Princess of Wales's private sitting room. Catherine, dressed in a simple cream-colored sweater and holding a cup of nettle tea, was reviewing the seating chart for the upcoming diplomatic corps reception. It was a task she usually found meditative, a puzzle of protocol and precedence. But today, her pen hovered over the paper, frozen by a knock that felt less like an announcement and more like a sentence. A palace aide, his face a mask of professional blandness, delivered a small velvet-lined box and a handwritten note sealed with Queen Camilla's distinctive wax emblem, a symbol that had come to represent not just tradition, but a quiet, unyielding pressure. The note was brief, polite, and devastating. My dear Catherine, for the sake of royal continuity, I believe the lotus flower tiara would suit the evening's theme perfectly. Please have it delivered to my dresser by noon tomorrow. So, looking forward to our united front. See. There was no request. There's no would you mind or might I borrow. There was only a statement of fact dressed in the language of kindness. The lotus flower tiara was not just any piece of the crown jewels. It was the tiara the late Queen Elizabeth II had personally selected for Catherine to wear for her very first state banquet, a symbol of her initiation into the highest echelons of royal duty. It was woven into the fabric of Catherine's own royal identity, the piece she had worn in her official portrait as Princess of Wales. To lend, it was not generosity, it was an erasure. And as Catherine stared at the note, the tea grew cold in her hands, and the silence of the room became a scream. She knew that refusing would be framed as petulance, a failure to understand the bigger picture. She knew that agreeing would set a precedent she could never undo. For the first time in her measured, graceful life as a royal, Catherine felt not like a princess, but a pawn. Prince William was in the midst of a strategy meeting regarding his Earthshot Prize tour when the news reached him, not through Catherine, who would never burden him during work, but through his trusted equerry, Lieutenant Colonel Johnny Thompson. Johnny had heard it from a senior palace steward who had overheard the Queen's private secretary instructing the Jewel House to prepare the lotus tiara for transfer. William's reaction was instantaneous and volcanic. In 20 years of public life, he had perfected the art of the royal poker face, but this time the mask shattered. His jaw tightened, his knuckles whitened around the pen in his hand, and his eyes, usually so warm and approachable, turned into chips of Arctic ice. She did what? He asked, his voice dangerously low. The meeting was adjourned without explanation. He didn't walk to Catherine's rooms, he stormed. The long corridors of Windsor, lined with portraits of Stoic ancestors, witnessed a rare sight. A future king moving with the unchecked fury of a husband whose family had been violated. He found Catherine standing by the window, the tiara box open on the table, her reflection ghostly and resigned in the glass. She didn't turn when he entered. You know, then, she said, her voice hollow. What followed was not a loud argument, but something far more intense. A whispered, furious counsel between two people who understood the stakes better than anyone. William pulled her away from the window, into the corner of the room, where even the walls had trouble hearing. You are not sending her that tiara, he said, not as a suggestion, but as a command rooted in love. Catherine finally turned, and he saw the tears she had been holding back, not tears of sadness, but of exhaustion. She framed it as unity, William. For the diplomatic corps. If I refuse, I'm the one breaking the united front. I'm the difficult one, the one who doesn't understand tradition. William ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration that had become more frequent in the months since his father's coronation. This isn't tradition. This is a power play. The lotus tiara is yours. Granny gave it to you to wear. It's not a loner piece from the vault. It's a statement of your role. He paused, the realization dawning on him with a sickening clarity. She's testing the boundary, seeing how much she can take before you push back. And if you give in on this, Catherine, she'll take the Cambridge lovers, not next. Then the earrings. Piece by piece, she'll dismantle your identity to build her own. The couple's history with Camilla was complicated, layered with decades of public pain and private reconciliation. William had, for the sake of his father's happiness, forged an uneasy truce with his stepmother. They had reached an understanding. Polite distance, mutual respect for official engagements, and a strict avoidance of personal territory. But this, William realized, was a declaration of war on that very territory. The tiara was not fabric and gemstones. It was a symbol of Catherine's legitimacy, her hard-won place in the monarchy's affections. To demand it was to imply that Catherine's role was subordinate, that her treasures were merely on loan from the crown, and by extension from the queen. He thought of his mother, Diana, and how she had been stripped of her HRH, of her security, of her very sense of self in the divorce. He saw the same insidious logic at play here, a slow, genteel dismantling of a woman's identity under the guise of protocol. "No," William said firmly, pulling out his phone. "This ends now." His first call was to his father, King Charles III. The conversation was brief and brutal. William laid out the situation in clipped military terms: the unilateral demand, the lack of consultation, the emotional impact on Catherine. Charles, ever the negotiator, tried to smooth things over. "My boy, it's just a tiara for one night. Camilla wants to honor the Asian diplomats with a piece that has Eastern influences. The lotus is perfect. It's not personal." William's response was a slap of cold water. "It is entirely personal, Papa. It's Catherine's tiara. Would you ask Camilla to lend her grandmother's diamond choker to someone else for a united front?" There was a silence on the line, the kind of silence that precedes a truth too uncomfortable to speak. Charles stammered about the needs of the monarchy and keeping the peace, but William cut him off. "The peace you're keeping is a false one, built on my wife's sacrifice. I won't allow it. If the Queen wants a lotus tiara for the reception, she can wear the one from the vault that hasn't been touched since 1930. Not Catherine's." He hung up before his father could reply, a move that would have been unthinkable for the dutiful son just a year ago. But the dutiful son had watched his wife endure years of quiet, calculated undermining, and the dutiful son was gone. The second confrontation happened in person in a gilded antechamber of Buckingham Palace just hours before the reception. William requested a private audience with Queen Camilla, and she, perhaps expecting a meek apology or a logistical discussion, agreed. She was seated at a writing desk, reviewing her own seating chart, dressed in a chic navy day dress. She looked up with a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "William, how lovely. Is Catherine feeling better? I do hope she's not catching a chill." William closed the heavy oak door behind him. The click of the latch was like a gunshot. He did not sit. He stood over her desk, his 6'3" frame casting a long shadow. "You know why I'm here, Camilla. The tiara." Her smile flickered, but held. "Ah, the lotus. A magnificent piece, isn't it? I thought it would be a lovely tribute to our guests from Southeast Asia. And Catherine is always so generous." William leaned forward, placing both hands on the desk. "Catherine is not generous. Catherine is afraid. Afraid of disappointing you. Afraid of being labeled difficult. And you are exploiting that fear." For the first time, Camilla's composure cracked. A flash of annoyance, no, anger, crossed her features. "I am the Queen," she said, her voice dropping the performative warmth. "The jewelry of the crown is at my disposal for state events. That is the rule. That is the history." William shook his head slowly, his fury now a cold, controlled thing. "No, that is the rule for the crown's jewelry, the pieces in the royal collection. The lotus tiara was a personal gift from my grandmother to my wife. It is Catherine's property, legally, historically, and morally. You are not borrowing it. You are confiscating it." He straightened up, his voice rising not in volume, but in authority. "You will call your dresser right now. You will tell her the plan has changed, and you will never, ever make a demand of my wife again. If you need something for photo op, you ask the keeper of the royal collection. You do not touch Catherine's personal belongings." The aftermath was a thunderclap that echoed through every staff corridor and servant hall in the palace. Camilla, unused being challenged so directly by anyone, let alone her stepson, did not call her dresser. Instead, she called her husband. The ensuing row between the king and queen was described by one anonymous palace source as apocalyptic. Charles, caught between the wife he adored and the son he was desperate to appease, tried to broker a compromise. Camilla would wear a different tiara, but Catherine would voluntarily offer the lotus for a future event. But William, having tasted the power of absolute refusal, refused to budge. No future event, he told his father's private secretary. The answer is no. Forever. That is the new rule. The diplomatic reception went ahead. Camilla wore the Belgian sapphire tiara, a magnificent but impersonal piece from the vault. The photographs showed her smiling, but those who knew her saw the tightness in her jaw. Catherine attended the event, wearing the lotus tiara herself, a silent, glittering declaration of victory. She walked into the ballroom on William's arm, the sapphires and diamonds catching the light, and for the first time in months, her smile was real. But the war was not over. It had merely entered a new phase. The tabloids, smelling blood, ran conflicting stories. Queen's tiara snub. Palace in crisis screamed one headline. William's fury. Couple refuses royal request shouted another. The palace press office issued a bland statement about a simple miscommunication regarding scheduling, but no one believed it. The real drama unfolded behind closed doors. Camilla, deeply humiliated, began a campaign of passive-aggressive retaliation. Catherine's favorite charities saw their royal patronage requests delayed. Her office was moved to a smaller, darker suite in Kensington Palace. Invitations for Catherine to accompany the king on overseas tours mysteriously got lost in the mail. It was petty, it was vindictive, and it was unmistakable. Camilla was making Catherine pay for William's defiance, not with a direct attack, but with 1,000 small cuts designed to isolate and diminish her. William saw every single cut. He noticed when Catherine's name was omitted from a thank-you speech at a royal concert. He noticed when Camilla accidentally referred to Catherine as the Duchess instead of the Princess of Wales in a private meeting. And with each slight, his fury deepened, transforming from a hot, reactive anger into a strategic, long-term resolve. He began keeping a record, a digital file, encrypted and hidden, detailing every instance of what he considered harassment. He shared it with no one, not even Catherine, who begged him to let it go. "Don't make this your life's mission, William," she pleaded one night, exhaustion lining her face. "She's not worth it." But William disagreed. He saw it as his primary mission. He was not just defending a tiara. He was defining the future of the monarchy. He was drawing a line in the sand, establishing that the reign of Queen Camilla would not come at the expense of the Princess of Wales. He was protecting not just his wife, but the institution itself from a slow rot of resentment and favoritism. The breaking point came 3 months later, during the annual Trooping the Color Balcony appearance. The royal family lined up, according to strict protocol, the King and Queen center, the Prince and Princess of Wales to their left. But as the photographers clicked, Camilla deliberately stepped to her left, forcing Catherine to take a half step back, literally pushing her out of the primary frame. It was a gesture so subtle that most viewers missed it, but so vicious that those who understood royal choreography gasped. William saw it happen in real time. He did not shout. He did not gesture. He simply took a deliberate step forward, placing his hand on the small of Catherine's back, and guided her firmly back to her original position, his body creating a physical barrier between his wife and the Queen. The photo of that moment, Camilla's frozen smile, William's protective stance, Catherine's serene face, became the defining image of the year. It was a silent, televised rebuke. The king, sandwiched between his wife and his heir, looked utterly lost. That night, the real reckoning occurred. After the flypast and the family lunch, William demanded really a private meeting with his father, sans Camilla. They met in the king's study at Buckingham Palace, a room filled with the ghosts of empire and duty. Charles looked old and tired. William looked like a man who had run out of patience. "It has to stop, Papa," William said without preamble. "The snubs, the maneuvering, the slow erasure of Catherine. It's not just about the tiara anymore. It's about respect, and Camilla has none for my wife. Charles sighed, the weight of his two roles, husband and sovereign, crushing him. She feels threatened, William. You have to understand. The public loves Catherine. They tolerate Camilla. It's hard for her. William's eyes blazed. Then she should try being kinder. Instead, she tries to be bigger. She tries to push Catherine down to lift herself up. And I will not stand here and watch you enable it. You are the king. You have the power to stop it. The question is, do you have the will? The conversation that followed was the most honest Charles and William had ever had. Charles admitted in a whisper that he feared conflict with Camilla. He feared the loneliness of his old age without her. He feared the tabloid frenzy of a royal divorce. William listened, and for a moment his fury softened into pity. I'm not asking you to divorce her, Papa. I'm asking you to lead her, to tell her that the bullying ends now, or else I will have to take measures that neither of us will like. The measures hung in the air, unspoken but understood. William was the future. He had the public, the popularity, and the moral high ground. If he chose to distance his family from Camilla, to refuse joint appearances, to leak the truth of the tiara incident to a friendly journalist, he could cripple her public image irreparably. He could turn the monarchy into a house divided against itself. Charles, faced with the collapse of everything he had worked for, finally surrendered. I will speak with her, he said, and this time I will make it stick. Whether the king's words made a difference, or whether Camilla simply recognized a battle she could not win, the campaign of small cuts abruptly stopped. Catherine's office was moved back. The patronage delays vanished. The snide remarks in meetings ceased. The tiara incident was never mentioned again, but it lived on in the wary glances exchanged between the two households. A new, brittle peace settled over the palace. Catherine continued her work, her early years initiatives, her mental health campaigns, with renewed vigor, wearing the lotus tiara to every major state occasion as a quiet act of defiance. And William, no longer just the heir, but the enforcer, watched from the shadows, ready to strike again if necessary. The monarchy had survived a crisis, but it had changed. The old understanding that the Queen's word was law was dead. In its place was a new reality. The Prince and Princess of Wales were not subjects to be managed. They were a force to be reckoned with. And as the photographers packed up their cameras and the last of the reception guests departed, William pulled Catherine close on the balcony, the lights of London twinkling below. It's over, he whispered. Catherine looked up at him, her hand finding his. No, she said softly, a knowing smile playing on her lips. It's just beginning. And in the quiet of the night, the tiara sparkled on her head, not just a jewel, but a trophy, a warning, and a promise all at once.